The Chess World Cup is underway. In this video, I'm going to focus on the matchup between Ravia Haria, I am from England, versus Vadim Zvjaginsev, 2608 Russian GM. Expect the unexpected. In the classical games, it's 1-1. Now we are on the tie breaks. First up, we get the rapid games. 25 minutes plus 10 seconds on the clock. Then, if that's a tie, it'll be blitz and then Armageddon. So we have rapid game number 1. Let's see what happens. Ravia Haria has white, 2440. Zvjaginsev has black, 2608. e4, c5, we have a Sicilian. In the previous game, Vadim played the French. Knight 3, d6, bishop b5, check. You can block with the knight to c6 or to d7 if you want to keep more pieces on the board, but Vadim played bishop d7, take. c4, you get a bind in the center, but so does black. He plays e5. So both sides are fighting for central control. Knight c3, bishop e7, a3, getting ready for b4, a5, black stops it, d3, bishop d8. So rerouting, very strange reroute, but the point is, once black goes for this, he's going to put his knight here and then castle, and then even f5 as a pawn break. Rook b1, knight c6, castle, knight e7, knight d5. Castle, bishop d2. It's move 12, everyone has all of their pieces out. Now what? Pawn break. Where do we get to play? White needs to go for b4, black might go for f5, black might even go for b5 if he's got time, rook b8 and b5. But after bishop d2, black takes in the center, take, and now knight e7. And after knight e7, white goes b4. There's a really cool idea actually. It's because there's the dubious symbol. If you go knight a7, white might actually need to play a4. If Ravi continued with his plan of b4, take, and now you go a4. If d4, you can play f6, you can take. But if you played something else, like h3 or bishop e3, white actually has knight b5. I've never seen this idea. You reroute the knight back to a7, then it comes to b5, and it actually sits very well on this square. You're threatening a fork. This rook is now in the game, supporting the passed pawn. So that was one option. But in the game, Vadim played knight e7, b4, there's your pawn break, take, a4, black gets his passed pawn, d4. Pawn break for white, but a double question mark. A blunder. Black played knight g6, he didn't take advantage of that. There's a cool option here, f5. Pawn break versus pawn break. f5 actually works out in black's favor. If you take, then you take. e6 doesn't matter, you have a protected passed pawn for one move. After queen b5, this pawn is going to drop. If you take, you go e4. This knight doesn't have a good square. You attack the knight and then queen takes f5. You are going to take the d pawn next. Knight e6 doesn't matter, rook e8. That pawn is dropping. But Vadim didn't take advantage of that. He played knight g6. Take, bishop e3. Good move. You improve the placement of your bishop, but you also stop black getting his bishop to b6, which would have been an ideal spot for it. f5, pawn break, but it is a move too late. It is not as effective anymore. Knight d2, reroute, because if you take, then the knight is very well placed. Black now plays a very committal move, f4. White has 10 minutes 30, black has 12 minutes. f4 forces bishop c5, you attack the rook, and now f3. With b6, bishop now comes back to f2. White has a very nice pawn chain in the center. b5. Both sides have a protected passed pawn. Let's see what happens. Rook c1, white gets the c file. Bishop b6, offering a trade. Rook defends bishop. Knight b1, really cool idea from Ravi. Putting the knight back home, so then it comes out to a3 to blockade this pawn. Another option is actually bishop c5. Because if you take, now white gets two passed pawns. So does black, but black's passed pawns are not as effective as white's because white's are central passed pawns. So bishop c5 may have been better from white. Knight b1 played, bishop takes f2 check, rook takes f2, allowing white's pieces in. With rook f2, white can now go rook c2 to take full control of the c-file. White can put his knight on a3 to blockade, and on this spot, attack b5. White is taking over. Knight e7, knight a3, knight c8, rook c2. Queen d3 next, also putting pressure on b5. Now, why did Vadim reroute his knight like this? Because he's going to put it on d6. Queen d3, rook a7, rook c6. White's pieces are coming in. Rook b7, queen c3. Ravi has Alekhine's gun. 2 rooks and a queen on the c-file. Queen e7, king f1. h6, rook c7, offering a trade, because at the moment white has no entry squares. He can't go to c8, so he has to go to c7. Offer a trade, make progress. Take, rook f7, take. So even though a queen and a rook have come off, rook c6, and white is really taking over. You have a perfect blockader on a3. Not only is it blocking this pawn, it's attacking this. You've got a pawn chain all the way to d5 and a very active rook. It can go to b6 to come to attack b5. White is taking over. Let's see what happens. Rook d7, you defend the knight, king in. King e7. King d3, king e7, rook b6, g5. And now time to cash in. Knight takes b5, take. Rook c7, planning to come in? No. Rook c5 stops it. Rook b7, king c3. No chances for black to enter the white position. h5, rook c6, g4. The problem is when Vadim advances his pawns, they are now all targets. Rook e6 check, and you pick it up. 6 against 4. White still has to finish it off. Check, king b2, rook c4, king a3. Rook c2, attacking g2, but take, and take. Rook e2, rook f5, take, king takes a4. The smoke has cleared. 1 minute 38 for white, 18 seconds for black. So white is ahead on the clock and he's got a totally winning rook endgame. King d6, g5, rook e5 offering a trade, rook takes f4 played. 53 seconds against 25. The cool thing here is you can actually trade because take, you just push. These 2 pawns are just too far apart. Push, queen, and you are 3 pawns up in this queen endgame. Rook e5, rook takes f4. Rook g5, 3 pawns up in a rook endgame, game over. Rook d4, rook g2, push, king up, and here, fancy move, but I'm guessing Ravi, he is so nervous because he is on the verge of beating Vadim once again. 1 minute 05 against 44 seconds, cool move here. You got to be cool as a cucumber to play that move in one of the most important games of your chess career. d6 works, can't take the rook, d7, there's no way back for the rook. I don't blame him for not playing this. No way. I bet he was so nervous here. And rightly so. King b5, king e5, drop the rook back, king d6, king b6. So no way to defend that pawn. So he gives it up. He's 2 pawns up. Push, king up, push, king c5, and here check. He even gives it up, and now king c7, he just runs it home. After king c5, maybe king c7 here first, because you can't take because check. And then you're going to pick up the rook. So after this, king c7, black resign because there's no good way to stop the promotion. 1-0 to Ravia Haria. In the next game he has black, see if he can hold it, and then he may be through to the next stage of the World Cup. Vadim has white, Ravia Haria has black, e4, e6, so the French defense once again, and now f4. Mixing it up. In the previous day he played the King's Indian attack. Even though Vadim won, he got a very bad position, so he's not repeating this against Ravi. d5, e5, c5, knight f3, knight c6, c3, knight h6. Knight's out, knight f5, so in the French defense, all about attacking the white pawn on d4, knight c2, bishop e7, d4. Take, white has a lot of space, but black has a clear target. Even though white is defending this target sufficiently. He's got 2 knights and a queen on it. Bishop d3, threatening to damage black's structure. If black doesn't sort it out, he's going to take the knight and mess it up. Black has less space. A good strategy is to trade pieces off, so black plays knight h4. Take, bishop takes h4, check, and guess what? He plays king f1. He doesn't even play g3. And then maybe here, then he can castle or even go h4. And the point is, you're going to see it very soon. King f1, bishop goes back anyway. Oh yeah, if you don't go back, then queen g4, queen h5 is so dangerous. Yeah, castling, I mean, we can all blunder. Queen h5 is just losing. Bishop, queen on here, and you're attacking the bishop, so can't do that. Bishop goes back to e7, h4. Again with this move, just getting space, and yeah, I mean, almost every middle game nowadays you can play the move h4. The point of this is, after bishop d7, you can go rook h3. So do you remember 2 moves ago, this move, It's not possible. If white had blocked with g3, so king f1 here. Bishop h4 check, g3. There's no way for white to actually get the rook along the third rank into the game. So that's why here, this was Vadim's idea. Rook h3. Knight b4. Again with a trade. Black has less space, so he offers a trade with knight b4. There's no way for white to avoid this. Take, take. Bishop e2. Move the bishop back, so then rook b3 is now a threat. And Ravi now plays a really good move because he stops it with bishop a4, which looks like a waste of time because you're attacking the queen, forcing white. Well, white could move the queen, but white played b3, and now bishop b5. Again, yet another trade is offered. Black is completely fine. Ravi has traded his bad French bishop. He's on his way to achieving a draw, going to the next stage of the World Cup. 13 minutes for black, 16 minutes for white. a4, bishop takes e2 check. The queen needs to defend the pawn, so it takes with the king. White has bishop a3 next, but it's not a threat. h5, controlling g4. Also stopping white getting more space with g4. Bishop a3, doesn't matter, queen b6, take, take. So really, what's happened in this game? Two knights, two bishops have been traded off. Rook c3, rook c8, rook c1, take, take. Yet another set of trades. Queen d3, threatening f5, so you stop it with g6, rook c3, planning to double. Rook c8, king d1, and c5, so he gets his pawn break in. No time to go queen c2, because queen d4. So throughout this game, the d4 pawn has been a target for black. King d1, c5, and queen b5. Offering yet another set of trades. c4 first. Queens come off and take. And now taking on c4. By the way, one cool option is rook a8. Wow. Just like that, giving up a pawn. But in rook endgames, what's more important than the number of pawns you have is the activity of your king and your rook. So take, take. This is a cool option. So what's happening? This is now possible. This is under attack. So if you go rook a3, even rook a5 with b5, but now this option is available. What a cool option pointed out by Stockfish. But in the game, b takes c4, Ravi played the normal move, take with the pawn. King d2, b5, take. So, getting rid of that weakness, Ravi goes for this transition. Now, what happens is he's going to be a pawn down. Take, rook b8, take, and take. So, a pawn down, very likely to be a draw. Let's see the rest. King up. Rook b2, you attack it. Rook c2, no way can you trade. Check, back, up. Okay, a bit of shuffling, nothing happens, nothing happened, a lot of shuffling. Nothing happens, nothing happens. Right, and there's the pawn break. White had to go d5 to make any progress. Take, take. Now it's 4 against 3. Getting very close to a draw, getting to the next stage of the World Cup. 3 minutes for black and 5 minutes for white. Check. Rook g2, attack the pawn. Swing, back. A lot of shuffling. Right, another pawn break, because really that's all white can do. g4, take, take. But now these pawns are split. It's not easy to make any progress. Rook a1, rook g3, king there. Now h5. White has 2 minutes, black has 46 seconds. Take, take. 2 against 1 now. King g5, king g7, f5. Rook e1, attack the pawn from behind, f6. King back. Rook a3. Rook a3, whoa. Sacrificing a pawn. Let me check this out, because if check... King h6, wow. King e8, king g7. Oh, that's so harsh. Oh, these grandmasters, oh my gosh. Wow, didn't see that one. King e6, check. Yikes, here, take, take, ouch, man, ouch. So close to losing it, right, so here, Ravi saw this clearly, or else he wouldn't just take a free pawn, he checked. Kicking the king out the way, wow. Rook takes e5 check, king h6, losing because the king is going to come in. This rook is going to flush the king out, and there's no good way to stop it. If you go rook e6, you go check. This actually forces, this is the line I saw, I didn't see the other line. Rook e8, take, take, and that's it. The king has to move, and then white is going to take it, ouch. So rook a3, check. Kick the king away, check. King g8. Rook e1 behind the pawn. Rook e4 behind the pawn. Check, check, check. White's making some progress. White actually makes serious progress actually. He's got the king all the way here. I mean, the king used to be here, and now it's made its way all the way to f8, but black has a good fortress. King g6. The idea is black could time it, go king f5, attack this pawn, but it's very important black has a rook here to keep defending f7 along with the king. King g8. Both sides have 24 seconds each. Rook b7. King in the corner, thrown a check, and now after rook e8, king back to g6. King g8. Same position as before, right. Rook a5, and after rook a5, forcing the pawn to move, because if rook here, just rook back, no change. Here, check. e6. White tries to make progress, but you just take it. And after f7, white is one move away from winning. Move the king, and then queen. But not only is the king attacking this pawn, black now plays rook a7, and with this move, that pawn is going to drop. I believe white actually resigned here because a draw is the same as a loss. White just resigned, and with this result, Ravia Haria is through to the next stage of the World Cup. If rook d6, take, king here, and this is likely to be a draw. In the next round, Ravia Haria will play Etienne Bacrot. Etienne is one of the strongest grandmasters from France. I believe he is the second French GM behind MVL, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. I think Bacrot is actually MVL's second. They work together, so that will be Ravi's next challenge. Expect the unexpected, because no one expected Haria to beat a 26:08 Russian GM. By the way, here's YouTube's suggestion for what to watch next, but if you don't like that option, you might like the first game. How did Ravi actually beat Vadim? This was on day 1 of the World Cup, so I'm going to put this video over here. But if you don't like that video, you might like this one. Magnus Carlsen loses 4 times in 2021. Now Magnus, he doesn't lose many games, so I thought it'd be interesting to analyze his losses. Thanks for watching.